Picture this. The temperature outside is negative 40 degrees. The wind is howling loud enough to shake the walls. Now, imagine you don't have a heater. You don't have double-paned windows. You don't even have a house. In fact, your only clothing is a poorly cured animal hide, and your next meal is still walking around somewhere in the snow, weighing 2 tons and sporting a pair of deadly curved tusks. How on earth did you survive? During the Last Glacial Maximum, the peak of the last ice age about 20,000 years ago, massive ice sheets covered a third of the globe. Our ancestors didn't just survive this brutal, frozen wasteland. They thrived in it. Without electricity, central heating, or even basic metal tools, they conquered the deadliest winters in human history. Today, we're looking at the ingenious, borderline extreme survival hacks of the Ice Age. When we think of groundbreaking human inventions, we think of the wheel, or the steam engine, or the internet. But there is one simple tool that actually saved our species from freezing to death: the eyed needle. Before its invention, humans basically wore poncho-style animal skins. They draped loose hides over their shoulders and tied them at the waist. In a mild winter, that's fine. In an Ice Age blizzard, the wind blows right through the gaps. If cold air gets in and your sweat freezes, you develop hypothermia and die. It's that simple. But around 30,000 years ago, someone had a stroke of genius. They carved a tiny piece of bone, poked a hole in the end, and created the first needle. This allowed ancient humans to sew tailored clothing. They could shape sleeves, pants, and hoods to fit tight against the body. They used sinew, animal tendon, as thread, which would actually swell when wet, sealing the needle holes and making the clothing completely waterproof. They also figured out layering. They wore soft, insulated fur on the inside, facing their skin, and tough, windproof hides on the outside. It was the world's very first high-tech winter gear, and it kept...
Okay, so you have the jacket, but where do you sleep when the sun goes down and the temperature plummets? Hollywood loves to show cavemen, well, living in caves, but caves are rare, and they don't move. If the migrating herds of mammoths or reindeer moved, humans had to move with them. So how do you build a windproof shelter on the flat, treeless Siberian tundra, where there are literally no trees for wood? You build it out of bones, specifically mammoth bones. In places like modern-day Ukraine and Russia, archaeologists have found the remains of shelters constructed entirely from the bones of woolly mammoths. These weren't just messy piles. They were highly engineered architectural structures. The foundation, made of heavy mammoth skulls partially buried in the ground to anchor the home against violent winds. The walls, interlocking leg bones stacked like a game of Jenga. The roof, mammoth ribs arched together to form a dome, covered in thick animal hides and weighted down with turf and snow for perfect insulation. A single hut could require the bones of up to 95 mammoths. Inside, it was cozy, dry, and surprisingly warm. Now, let's talk about the fireplace. To keep a fire going on the frozen tundra with no wood, you have to get creative. So what did they burn? Bone marrow and dry animal dung. Mammoth bones are incredibly rich in fat and grease. If you crack them open and throw them into a small starter fire, they act like prehistoric wax candles, burning hot and slow for hours. But fire wasn't just for warmth, it was for fuel. And during an Ice Age winter, the human body needs a lot of fuel. If you're trekking through deep snow in sub-zero temperatures, your body burns up to 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day just to stay warm. You cannot survive that on berries and lean meat. You need fat. Ancient humans targeted the fattiest parts of animals: brain, marrow, and organ meats.
This high-fat, high-protein diet kept their metabolisms running hot, essentially turning their bodies into... But the most important survival tool wasn't a needle, a bone, or a fatty steak. It was each other. An Ice Age winter is a psychological battle. Months of darkness, howling winds, and isolation. No single human could survive this alone. Tribes survived by dividing labor perfectly. While the hunters tracked game, others stayed back to repair clothing, tend the fire, and preserve food. They shared resources unconditionally because they knew that if one person starved, the whole tribe was weakened. They kept their spirits high by storytelling, creating art, and sharing music around the fire. Survival wasn't just physical. It was deeply social.
So the next time you complain about the heater taking too long to warm up or your winter jacket not being the right color, take a second to look back 20,000 years. Our ancestors faced down miles of solid ice, predators the size of trucks, and temperatures that could freeze water in mid-air. And they won. Because of their grit, their incredible ingenuity, and their ability to work together, they didn't just survive the Ice Age. They paved the way for the modern world we enjoy today. Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper into the wild history of human survival, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.